and a water fountain. And who is carrying a ton of water? Well, not a ton of water, but I still have 2 full bottles in his backpack. Yeah, guess who? Difficult trail ahead. Read information carefully. I did. Now we are talking business. We have reached the southern slope of the Portofino promontory. As you can see, a lot more rocks visible. Not really a dense forest anymore, but a loose cover with rocks and grassy patches in between. Still a macchia, and also still a lot more deciduous trees than in similar areas in the Riviera di Ponente, over there behind those grasses. I was there 200 kilometers away this morning. Yeah, over there a lot drier. Here because the winds usually come from there and hit this slope. They are bringing enough water for more vegetation, but you can still see it's the exposed hot southern slope. And here I still don't see an area which would be good for dwarf palms. There should be 3 populations here. By the way, here in front there has been a fire a couple years ago. See all the skeletons of the burned trees or shrubs? Yeah, without those fires, a lot of areas in the Mediterranean would have already returned to their traditional forested state. Wait a moment, those are all limestone rocks. This is some conglomerate. Could still be rich in lime. I mean, the cement has baked it together. But here we have quartz, quite a sour thing. Yeah, I guess they were baked together with some sort of lime sandstone or what? Interesting. Well, however, here I don't see any chestnut trees. There were where the pure limestone was. The beautiful thyme bush, see? In a shady, amazing, in a shady natural Mediterranean forest. All those flowering bushes would have no chance of survival. They are not flowering too much actually. Here the, what is it, some sort of grouse is not flowering so much. The chistus is also not flowering so much. Here one is flowering. Strange. This time of the year there should be a lot more flowers. This place is wet enough actually, so why so few flowers? Very strange. Ravens circling and waiting for the lonely traveler to misstep and provide them with a tasty dinner. Hope you're gonna go hungry tonight, buddy. Past the first metal chain. Yeah, rolling down there must be fun. Now that's looking more like it. I could totally imagine dwarf palm growing somewhere around here. The 3 little populations were only discovered in 1987, and they say they are not even sure if they are relics of an old distribution of the dwarf palm, or if the seeds were brought here by animals, probably by birds, because in the parks and gardens of the Riviera here around the corner, of course, since the 19th century, people have planted a lot of different palms, also dwarf palms, which were collected from the wild in the southern Mediterranean. After all, it's much cheaper to have a couple peasants dig out a palm tree in no man's land than to cultivate it for decades in a nursery. Well, here they were definitely not planted, because here I don't even see any relics of any type of cultivation. But it's not totally impossible that some birds brought the seeds here over from nearby Camogli. However, I doubt it. I said I couldn't see any relics of cultivation, but this huge olive bush here, it's the subspecies Europea, not the subspecies Oleaster. So I would say this is most probably a relic of cultivation. Well, even such a south-facing slope would have been cultivated in some way. I mean, there are springs here. I guess fishermen would come here from time to time. Another olive. Well, those olives on the cliff, pretty sure are not relics of cultivation, but were spread here by birds. Olive is not native here, but the birds eat fruits in the orchards and then spread them on the cliffs. So yeah, those olives, a couple of them could have been planted. However, in this case, I would probably also see carobs and maybe some other typically cultivated trees. I would say here, maybe there was some smaller scale cultivation, but I don't see too many relics of that. So most probably no ornamentals like palms were grown here. But where could those be? The hottest and driest parts, hottest and driest and most rough parts of the area they should be. Beautiful stand of strawberry trees. There must be water seeping from cracks in the rock. Well, they are not trees, they are bushes, which probably tells us that probably they were burned down and resprouted with many young stems from the roots. But the fact that they are so big right here beneath the tallest cliff means that water is seeping down through cracks. Here also an evergreen holm oak. Haven't seen this for some time. Also for like an hour I haven't seen people. Finally inner peace. I would suspect the dwarf palm stands down there. Up here it is dry and tough enough, but I guess it should be a bit less protected from frost. Well, down there near the sea acts as an air conditioner. However, not gonna crawl everywhere down there and check for them. Here's something not so nice. An invasive prickly pear cactus. Not even sure which species it is, but whichever it is, it has no place here. Chains behind me. Chains ahead of me. And a very interesting olive tree here. I've seen a lot of disturbed ground around here. And here, this looks very interesting. This olive tree has been grazed heavily. The upper part of the olive tree looks like Olea europea, subspecies europea. The lower part looks like the wild Olea europea, subspecies oleaster. There are two different possibilities here. Either this was grafted on top of this, but then this must be pretty old from the time this area was still cultivated. Look at it, this looks like a transitional thing. Or, what's more probable, of course this is all descended from cultivated olive trees brought here from the eastern Mediterranean. Oh, look at that. Which part is this? Is this Elba? This could be the island of Elba down there. Cool. Well, anyways, everything here is descended from cultivated olive trees, which look more or less like this one. But I guess with a lot of grazing, maybe it gets a more hedgehog-like, compact and slightly thorny appearance. But very interesting. This upper part looking like Olea europea var europea, and the lower part looking totally like Olea europea var oleaster. Sure, it's one plant. And what I wanted to show you is chains, and steep cliffs ahead. Cliffs above me, cliffs below me. Fell here. I might do some involuntary diving like 200 meters below. That was the easy part, folks. From now on, the trail is gonna go up and down to each one of those valleys and then up the next cliff. It's gonna be fun. At least I can choose among several beautiful little beaches. Also, those slopes totally look like dwarf palm habitat. However, as I said, we are here at the absolute northernmost natural distribution of the whole palm family. Doesn't get any more northern than this, so I would imagine that the palms grow rather somewhere on the vertical cliffs, but who knows? Who knows? Where can they be? Also, I saw a lot of poop from some ruminants. Also, there are lots of tiny little trails on the slope. I think there are mouflons there. And then I saw something white moving over there. Wait, can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? No, I cannot find it. Here, in the middle of the picture. Mouflons are not white. If this is indeed an animal that was moving there, then it is totally a domestic goat. However, I doubt they would have so many domestic goats here. This is more like mouflon territory. Mouflons are native to the islands of Corsica and Sardinia over there, but they've been introduced into many parts of Italy and other countries. Well, let's see who's gonna visit me tonight. Just normal goats or real mouflons? Centaurium, one of the most prized herbs of antiquity, still being used as a herb. How did the story go? Somebody wanted to kill Zeus or Hercules, but instead, with an arrow, and instead a centaur or a titan was stuck with this arrow and was going to die, but was healed with this miraculous herb. Well, this is it, Centaurium, folks. The miracle herb of the centaur, of those half man, half horse people. Goats for sure. There are two of them up there. Why are they in the vertical cliffs and not down here in the meadows? Yeah, well, I hoped for mouflons, but got goats. Just in order not to confuse everything, mouflons are not wild goats, mouflons are wild sheep. But those are some domestic or maybe even feral goats. Not so wild. Well, feral can be wilder than wild, actually. Why am I showing you goats and talking so much about them in a plant foraging video? Well, because millions of square miles worldwide are being shaped by wild grazing animals, and other millions of square miles worldwide are being shaped by domestic grazing animals. Those goats, they prefer shrubs to grasses. Also, they trample around everywhere, and the rain washes down this loose soil which they trampled loose from the... By the way, seems to be also a predator around here. Big one too. Well, when the sand is being washed, yeah, here mostly the tourists trample, but then the rain washes the soil down, leaves only naked rocks. So those goats, they prevent the reforestation of that area, even more since wolves and bears and lynxes have been made extinct around here. So goats are basically bad for the vegetation. Basically, yes, but there are also those situations where goats eat a lot of the vegetation before it can dry up, so that fires cannot spread so much. So are goats bad for the vegetation and for the forest? Basically, yes. But, like in everything in ecology and nature conservation, there is a big but somewhere. If you think it's easy to find a palm tree in this vegetation, think again. The European dwarf palm as the name suggests, it's not a very big plant. It's not even a tree. It's a shrub. It's a palm with several or numerous stems, and they all together form kind of a rounded shape, which might look a lot like many of those shrubs. Although I think it will be in the most exposed areas, and that can help to expose it to us. Let's see. A lonely Saracen tower over there. Why do they have a Saracen tower there? It cannot warn the nearby villages from the coming of the Saracens. It has to warn the faraway cities. Interesting. Maybe it is so that the Saracens cannot hide behind this promontory. Yeah, there was a game played here in the Mediterranean for hundreds of years. The Muslim areas of Asia, and especially North Africa, were stealing girls and everything else, like gold, stuff, trees, plants from Europe, while the Europeans were stealing girls and everything else, also boys, animals, stuff, ships, plants from North Africa and Asia. Technically there were pirates, but technically they were also government officials. Yeah, most pirates were actually government officials, and then they were called corsairs and not pirates. It's basically the same thing. And those towers were built everywhere around the Mediterranean, in the European parts to warn from African pirates, and in the African and Asian part to warn from European pirates. However, this is maybe the most remote one I've ever seen. One argument against the theory that those palms were introduced here recently, even by animals, is that apart from 2 or 3 cacti on the last couple kilometers, I haven't seen a single plant introduced by people. A single plant where I can be sure it was introduced by people. On the western slope, there were lots of like feral plums, feral cherries, feral loquats and so on. But not here. Everything I can see and recognize, except for those 2 or 3 cacti, one every couple hundred meters, is totally Mediterranean. Might be mistaken in something, because I haven't worked scientifically on Mediterranean flora for a long time now, 10-15 years. But no, I think everything apart from the cacti, everything I can see for now, despite thousands of tourists coming here every week, seems to be totally native, which is good, because if you destroy an ecosystem but don't introduce new species, it can usually restore itself with the species present. But if you introduce new species, the restored ecosystem will never be the same. Dwarf palms, where are you? Little children think that this method usually works, so maybe it will work for me too. Reach the next little beautiful bay. The promontory is the Saracen Tower. Yeah, this here could totally be dwarf palm habitat. All those slopes. But also I found another invasive plant. Somebody has been eating grapes and spitting the seeds here. Well, I mean, there is some chance that there is a natural Vitis vinifera, or no, Vitis sylvestris population around here, and birds have eaten grapes somewhere up in the forest, or rather in one of the little valleys, and spit out seeds here. But I think some tourist has eaten grapes and spit out the seeds, although I don't think they have a chance to survive here. Well, let's reduce that chance. Actually, grapevine greens are quite tasty. Yeah, not bad. Here a little valley on the southern shore, a lot less lush than on the west coast, but still 10-meter high trees. The forest is definitely coming back. If the goats don't spread too much and if there are no fires, the forest will spread left and right from this valley. Now ain't that incredibly beautiful? So peaceful. So late, there is nobody here. But also, don't see a single palm. Those slopes look like perfect habitat for the dwarf palm. However, it could also, since it's at the very northern limit of distribution of palms in general, it could also be somewhere in the inaccessible cliffs. Well, anyway, I don't have binoculars, which is bad in that case. The phone doesn't see anything, so I'll continue searching without it. Something ahead of me. I heard something like a dog barking. Then a couple of times something basically scraping on a rock. Stones falling. The scraping sound continues. There haven't been people for the last 2 hours, and I want to stay here overnight because otherwise I'll have to climb this high slope. It's about 200 meters, but I would like to know what's ahead of me. Well, I've seen goats and ravens, but what else can be around here? There. Branches moving. Right here. See, there were branches moving in the valley now again. Cannot be wind down there. There is some big animal down there. I mean big, yeah, goat-sized or something like that. See how the branches are shaking? Interesting. Funny thing is that I don't plan to go that far. That means that I'm gonna sleep with some unknown animal around me. There are wolves and bears in Italy, but I doubt they are in this area. They can be in the mountains behind the promontory, but I doubt they are down here. Most probably it's a goat. Interesting. Oh yeah. See where the bushes are shaking? To the left of it, hardly visible, is a brown goat-like animal. However, it's brown. That means it could be a goat, but it could also be a mouflon or even a capricorn. I can totally believe that the Italians have put mouflons here. If we were in Spain, this would be prime habitat for capricorns and dwarf palms, by the way. Now, is this a goat or a wild sheep? Not feral. Mouflons are true wild sheep, the wild ancestors of the domesticated sheep. There is one nearby, less than 10 meters, running downhill. One is going right, one is going left, one is staying down there. Some mouflons, that would be interesting. If they're feral goats or house goats, much less interesting. Tree up there, At least one doesn't seem to have the original mouflon colors, so it could be a house goat. Two of them could be mouflons, only going by the color, but the big one, well, it could be a mouflon, but it also could be a goat. I mean, I know there are goats in the area. I don't know whether there are mouflons in the area. Although the Italians, they have put mouflons in all similar areas. Nah, man, this is a goat, not a mouflon. What a pity. Just a feral house goat. Or maybe it still belongs to somebody, but I think it has escaped years ago. Oh no, a piglet. Those are goats or mouflons, but around me they are wild boars, and they have babies. Yeah, this was a very young wild piglet. Okay, I need to get loud again. Wild boars. Wild boars are no joke. They can attack you, so it's better. They know you are coming. If they... Oh fuck, here it is, less than 4 meters away from me. It's right behind there. That's dangerous, folks. There is a piglet right next to me, and I don't know where the mother is. It's here, less than 3 meters away. Here. See? Fuck. Get away, man! Why are you not scared? Oh. Why are you not scared? There are more of them down there. Oh, there's another one. Where is the mother? No, folks, this is getting dangerous. Okay. I need to retreat. I don't know where the mother is. Those things can slit open your legs, and if you fall, even your belly, and they don't show any fear. Hey! They don't run? Shit, man. That's not good. And down there seems to be a flat space. Why does this happen so often to me? I wanna sleep exactly where the pigs are roaming. Get away! Stupid wild boars. What the? Where is your mother? What is your swine of a mother? Here's the other baby. Oh. Back there is something big. Hey! Hey! The big one is over there. The big pig. What the? This is a fuck. I'm not supposed to say this on YouTube. I want to upload this stuff. This is a stupid, dangerous situation. They should run when they hear me. Italy is full of hunters. Oh crap, there is the old one. There is the pig. There is the mother pig. See? Up there. Poor. It's an old female and she's eyeing me. and my babies her babies are around me. And she's slowly walking away. What the? This is totally not textbook, folks. When they hear me, they should run. And when her babies are around me and she's far away, she should attack. She doesn't do either, so I retreat a little bit and give them a little bit of time to move away. In my job, I'm dealing with wild boars pretty much every time I'm out in the Heidelberg forest at night. And if you don't respect them, sooner or later you suffer. And if you suffer from a pig, your chances of survival are slim. The goats continue watching me. So what were those animals around me who ran away? Apparently not those pigs. Or did the mother maybe run away and then notice that her little babies cannot follow? But the babies, they were foraging, rummaging without any care. And the goats are still up there watching me. They can still hear one of the piglets less than 10 meters away from me. Okay. That's scary, man. I mean, being surrounded by wild boars, yes. I've been surrounded by wild boars for decades. In Europe, in Borneo, in continental Malaysia, on European islands, like Sardinia, where they have a special subspecies of the wild boar. In Arizona, by the javalinas, the small desert pigs. But pigs usually always behave in the same way, and those don't. And when animals stop behaving the way they are supposed to behave, it's getting dangerous. The mother is still up there, I can hear her. Stupid little piglets are behind me. I'm between them. Okay. This rock is not high enough to stop them, but the goat is still watching me from over there. You can see its beard wiggling. I want to find a sleeping spot in this area. But yeah, why doesn't this wild boar mama collect her piglets? Here it is. Here is the piglet. What the? Is it lost between the rocks? But it's not even, it doesn't sound too bothered. It doesn't look too bothered. It's foraging. Psst! Shh! Shh! It's foraging in the ground. It doesn't care about me. Where is the mom? Last time I saw the mom, she was there, less than 10 meters away from where I am now. Yeah, go follow your mama. Yes, this way. Exactly. Get lost. Stupid pigs. I'm a human. We eat pigs. Okay, will it be able to climb up this? Oh yeah. Oops. There is the other piglet up there. There it is. There. Where is the mother? And usually they have more than 2 piglets. Oh my. They don't even care that I'm here. No, you cannot continue there. There is a vertical cliff. It might be less than a meter, but it's still too much for you. Crap, man. Uh-oh. There is something up there, and I doubt it's the goat. This guy is okay. I mean, those steps are just 30-40 centimeters, but this guy still managed to get up there. And up there where I last saw the big pig, I hear sounds, but it's not normal to have just 3 pigs. It's somewhere up there. The mother is less than 10 meters away from me. Okay, now the 3 pigs I've visually verified are all on the same side of me. And the goats are like 15-20 meters higher. They should be used to humans. Maybe they are really not being hunted, but not hunting them means the population getting out of control. Well, more feral cacti down there. And there were animals that scattered on this slope right beneath the trail. What are they? This here looks like a decent, well, it looks like the flattest spot for sleeping I've seen in some time. It's right on the trail. And I've had this stuff already in Germany and also in other places. When the goats are politely waiting for me in the middle of the freaking night to free the trail so that they can pass. I don't mind the goats waiting for me. I wonder whether the pigs are gonna wait for me. Nah, no more flat ground. Staying here on the trail for the night. Okay, more sounds ahead. Where are you, parent lovers? Huh? Where are you? Should be a ruin somewhere to the right and further down. A ruin with flat ground around it. I am at the ruin. Maybe because the tower in the background. Here it is on top of the promontory. Let me zoom in. Maybe because it's so isolated. The guards at this house when they were off duty. I guess they would cultivate cacti and keep goats, maybe some olive trees. But what else? There should be more relics of cultivation here. Maybe something forageable. Around old ruins you can forage the craziest stuff. I noticed that, for example, in Sardinia, around Bronze Age ruins, you can actually forage a lot of interesting fabaceae fruits, like the ones I ate earlier. So that's the ruin. Oh nice, even a big wine bottle, and nobody broke it in the last 100 years. Nope, nothing forageable around here. No old carob or pomegranate trees or something like that. Let's check again for the palms. Since we are close to this slope here, nothing. The cacti they grew here, by the way, are either Pancha vulgaris or some Ficus indica Dillenia hybrid. They are not typical Dillenia, or they would have a lot of very big thorns. They are not Ficus indica because this color has only been achieved in more modern hybrids of Ficus indica. Well, here on the Côte d'Azur / Riviera, there are a lot of things which I simply call Pancha vulgaris because it's the closest to them, but I'm not 100% convinced. But those two fruits should still be totally edible. I'm just too lazy and I still have enough apples and grapes with me. Oh, and by the way, do you know, the only thing worse than goats for causing erosion is goats in combination with wild boars. The goats will eat the vegetation, the boars will dig up the ground, and then look at that. The next rain will wash all the stuff down in this gully, and 30-40 meters away from here is the sea. Thought about going into this little bay, but that doesn't seem to be a beach, so no need to sleep near the sea right now. No, do they want to sleep right next to me? See? This little pile of hay moving. Guess who's inside? 3 meters further up, it's also moving. A little bit to the right. We have dusk already, so those things should become more active, but it looks almost like they are digging in. Yeah, there is the pig's tail. What's your plan, man? I want to sleep here. And where is your ma? This thing 3 meters above you in the bushes. Is it your brother or your ma? That night's gonna be lit. Now they're throwing rocks or other little pebbles, but each time I turn on the phone, they stop. And to my right when I want to sleep, something is rustling. I don't mind goats, but I mind the big pig. At least they haven't learned how to open backpacks yet. Here is the old one. 15 meters away from me. Hey! Hey! What the? The baby's right beneath her. 20 centimeters beneath her. They don't give a run. Nope. They don't care. They just don't care. Guess no hunters here, just tourists who are running away from them. Oh my, that's gonna be fun. And the goats are also very close. They're like, 15 meters to the left and a bit above the pigs, but I don't mind the goats. Just when I thought all animals are above me, they started throwing down rocks somewhere around the ruin down there. I just remembered one thing. I just thought what those boars and goats might do to me or to the general nature around here, but of course they're also bad for the dwarf palms. I mean, yeah, it's not, the goats are not desperate enough, there is enough vegetation, they will mostly leave the dwarf palm alone, but the boars, they like to eat the fruits and they can also dig out the whole plants. So wild boars are not necessarily the best animal for this specific plant. They are right above me, throwing rocks. Well, not really throwing them, just moving around, and those rocks are falling. And since the goats went over there, I guess now the pigs are above me. Oh my, that's gonna be a fun night. Now rate my setup. Spoiler alert, it's the same setup as every night, but not every night do those pigs and goats throw rocks down on me. However, I haven't heard them for the last 30 minutes, so I guess they went somewhere else. Starting day 2 of my Portofino exploration, which is an arduous climb up the cliff. Around me thyme, invasive cacti, mastix, and terebinth and mastix are pistachio species, however without edible pistachios. in both the sap and not the pistachios are being used. However, I did not manage to find good drops of sap which I can chew. The word mastics is related to the word masticate or chew. Well, because you can masticate or chew the sap. However, for that you need to find a wound or a broken branch and then get a droplet of sap. But for now, I haven't been lucky. Soon the wild olives will start flowering. The flowering ash is already flowering. You're supposed to harvest some sort of manna from the flowering ash, but I've never been able to do this, not from this species. Here where so many people brush against the mastics, they should have damaged some branches and released some sap. But nope. The feral goats are up there enjoying the sun. See the white spots? Those are the goats. The wild boars, which bothered me yesterday night, or rather I bothered them, or rather they were completely unbothered by me. Don't hear or see them. Throughout the first part of the night, some of those animals were, well, releasing little pebbles that fell down different cliffs. However, none of them reached me. So to remind you, I'm here not only because Portofino is an incredibly beautiful part of the Mediterranean coast, but I'm also here to search for the northernmost natural palm stands, not only in Portofino but in the whole wide world. The European dwarf palm is the palm that grows further north than any other palm tree, much further north. Palms are basically a tropical family with a couple dozen subtropical species, maybe even a couple hundred subtropical species, but thousands of tropical ones, and a couple more or less temperate ones, but none grows that far back. Here we are. If we were in America, we would be in Canada. However, here we are in northern Italy, still in a totally Mediterranean climate. You can see this by the olives and the evergreen holm oaks growing around. Olives and holm oaks, this is the definition for Mediterranean vegetation that can grow only in Mediterranean climate, more or less. Basically, oh, there is a boat coming around the promontory. A fisherman or a ranger. This area totally looks like dwarf palm habitat to me. If I was in Spain or in Sicily, I would totally expect it to be here. However, here at the northern limit of its distribution, could be, it's said that it grows only at the hottest, driest and most exposed areas of Portofino. Those are quite hot, dry and exposed areas. But it's possible that it only grows on the coastal cliffs. So I'm walking around looking for dwarf palms. The problem is the dwarf palm, as the name says, is a small palm, and also it grows more like a shrub than like a tree. So looking for single trunks with a bunch of leaves on top, it's not gonna cut it here. I must look for rounded shrubs with palm-like leaves, which is not so easy. Hi goats, what are the dwarf palms? I doubt the goats are very interested in the dwarf palms. The wild boars around here should be more harmful to the species. A wild olive Olea europea, var oleaster or subspecies oleaster. It looks like a, usually smallish shrub with dark green leaves, with short branches. Compare it to the var europea, the bigger shrub with the silvery leaves. The funny thing is, this is the cultivar, this is the wild form, but olives are not native to this area. So after thousands of years of cultivation, seedlings of the olive reverted to the old natural looking form. This gives you a bit more protection against grazing animals because the branches are short, and short dead branches form sort of thorns, so they prevent the goats from eating away all the leaves. Such long slender branches, they will eat them all the way to the leafless part. With those here, they will get a couple leaves, but they will not get all of them. Much better protection. However, the olives on this one are incredibly bitter. The olives on that one, I would guess, are also incredibly bitter. Also some small, primitive, feral, reverted to wild variety. And they are not in season anyway, so I haven't tried a single olive on this trip yet. Yesterday when I was on the lush west coast, I was able to forage a couple fruits, but even more tasty spring greens. Italians love to forage tasty spring greens. However, here on the dry southern coast, which is also full with goats and pigs, which together are destroying the whole ecosystem and causing crazy erosion, I cannot find edible spring greens yet. It has been a very dry winter. I was happy that the west coast of Portofino was quite moist, quite well supplied with spring greens. But here, puffballs. If I had a way to cook, I would take those with me and cook them. However, I think puffballs are not edible raw. I've never tried. You can tell me whether puffballs can be eaten raw. If those were champignons, I would totally eat them raw. With the puffballs, not sure. You can research it and tell me. Can you eat puffballs raw, or do you need to cook them first? Strawberry tree, Arbutus unedo. It's called strawberry tree because of the reddish, soft fruits. However, it's not in season. It will be months before it is in season. Punting up the slope with my two backpacks. It's horribly cold for May. We're in a cold spell. We've been in a cold spell for many weeks now in most of Central Europe and the Northern Mediterranean. However, Spain, for example, is getting all the Sahara air. It's not coming north towards us. However, here northern Italy, southern France, Germany, and big parts of Europe are getting only the polar air. They are not mixing. So despite being in the Mediterranean, I'm not in the Sahara air area, but in the polar air vortex, more or less. Crazy thing is, the rain, it rained last night, I got wet. The rain, the rain is coming from the northeast, not from the southwest, where it's supposed to come from. Really crazy. It's not that common that wind comes from the northeast, but bringing cold rain from the northeast is even less common here. This is an area for day hikes. Basically, you can do the whole Portofino south coast in one day with light luggage, even with heavy luggage if you are fit enough. Most hikers do half of it and then take a boat back to one of the neighboring ports. But right now in the early morning, in the middle of the trail. I'm the only one. It's really nice and peaceful and incredibly beautiful. Getting hot. Taking off all 3 sweatshirts. Wild line or flax. This is where stuff like linen and linseed or is it linseed come from. It's mostly, well, the domestic species are mostly used for fiber. You can get an oil out of it, but it's not digestible for most, or you can get an oil out of the seeds. Oil is not digestible for most organisms. Humans can consume it, but it's done more, the seeds are consumed most medicinally. The oil is sometimes consumed when you just want to consume oil without calories. And actually, it's so unconsumable for organisms that you can make linoleum from it, a sort of plastic-like cover for floors. Here, the wonderful Mediterranean thyme. What would pizza and pasta be without this beautiful spice? However, this one is not flowering very well due to drought. And here, the only bad apple in the basket, the only invasive species I'm seeing around here, Opuntia vulgaris, a species of prickly pear, which was introduced, I think, as a fruit shrub at a lone house down there, which is now a ruin, and now this fruit shrub is spreading along the cliffs. Yeah, I mean, what other invasives do you expect on such dry south-facing cliffs but cacti? On the promontory down there, a Saracen tower, not because it was built by the Saracens, but because it's supposed to protect you from Saracen pirates. So, somewhere here on those southern slopes should be 3 tiny populations of dwarf palm, Chamaerops humilis, the northernmost wild native populations of any palm anywhere in the world. There are several ways to search for them. At first I tried online, but unfortunately, when I was young you could do online searches and you would get a lot of scientific papers. Now you have to be subscribed to different websites, you have to pay money. Basically, all of the science is being hidden from people who are not part of universities or other big research institutions. The conspiracy theorists and people who just write for fun, they publish their stuff online. And all the scientists, they are basically hiding behind their firewall and isolating themselves from the rest of the world. And then you shouldn't be surprised that conspiracy theories are running rampant when you're getting suggested stupid, crazy videos with conspiracy theories and with pseudoscience on all platforms, while true scientific papers can only be accessed with a lot of difficulty. So I did not manage to access the scientific papers which stated the exact locations of those. Well, the second possibility is just walk around the trails and see if if the park has written big label somewhere. This is the northernmost population of the European dwarf palm in the world. Unfortunately, until now, I saw only one interpretation center, a hut a couple miles back, but no labels along the trails. The third one would be to drive a boat along the cliffs and check the cliffs with binoculars, because this European dwarf palm probably grows at the most exposed places, which could be the coastal cliffs. And the fourth one is what I'm doing right now. I'm walking the trail, then checking every habitat that seems suitable. This habitat doesn't seem suitable, the vegetation is too high. The habitat where I'm staying right now seems kind of suitable, but the habitat I crossed yesterday over there seems totally suitable for dwarf palm. Somewhere in the southern or central Mediterranean, this would be prime dwarf palm habitat. So we can suspect that it grows in similar places, but I didn't find it on the slope over there. It's interesting that apart from the cacti in the trail, and the ruin and the Saracen Tower, and of course the feral goats. Don't find any other signs of human habitation here on the southern slope of the Portofino Peninsula. Okay, this area was always quite dry and also very exposed to pirate attacks, but still I would have expected a couple rubble walls like on the lush western slope, a couple old fruit trees with those olives. You can never be sure, they can be hundreds of years old, but because here every couple decades the area is hit by severe frosts, they don't form giant 2 to 3 meter thick trunks, but the trunks die back every couple decades, freeze back every couple decades. However, still, for example, here in this lusher valley, would expect a couple remnants of rubble walls. Or was this area maybe some sort of hunting reserve for some of the local princes? In this case, they would have left it alone and only locked it somewhere in the 19th century when the old feudalistic structures broke apart. It's interesting. Basically, in the Mediterranean, you can find signs of old habitation, cultivation everywhere if you look long enough. And here, pretty much nothing yet. And if you wonder why I'm ranting so much about this, no relics of cultivation also means basically no fruits. So where to look for dwarf bulbs? Not at this little higher, well, taller grove in a moister area. There is some runoff here. Here simply there is not enough light for a plant like the dwarf bulb. This area might be very well protected from frost. We are here at the northern end of the Mediterranean climate. Frost is an issue, probably the main issue suppressing the dwarf bulb. Here this area would be quite protected, not perfectly protected because the trees are deciduous, but under a tree canopy, less wind, more warm air getting trapped. Here it would be theoretically almost warm enough for it, but too shady. You can smell champignons, mushrooms which are edible even raw. However, I don't want to spend too much time searching for them around here. If I see them, I'll eat them. If I don't see them, well, snails. Those are edible too, but not for me. If I don't see them, I'm running low on water. There were springs on the lush western slopes, but not here. And I don't smell the champignons anymore. Okay, guess it's over. Well, here is some source of water. I guess it will taste of tannins and rot and be teeming with parasites. Not that low on water yet. Still have some in my backpack, so I'll pass. I smell a ferret. Very strong smell of ferret. And it's not me. I might be smelly, but not that smelly. Yeah. Usually you don't see those things. You smell them much more often than you see them. I smell them every couple weeks, but you only see them every couple years. Not forageable for me, since I'm a vegetarian. I reached the top of the first 200-meter ridge for today. Couple of climbs, 600-700 feet up and down. Here I am in a mostly evergreen stand, so here this area should be even more sheltered, especially this little valley down there. Like, yeah, this dense evergreen vegetation will prevent most of the cold air to come in. We are talking here about we are comparing the situations with situations in the Everglades in southern Florida. The Everglades have frost, but dense little tree groves, usually smaller than an acre, on little islands are basically frost-free. However, we are comparing this to the situation here, where we are at the same geographical latitude as southern Canada. Not that the climate here is generally as mild as South Florida. However, on the Riviera di Ponente, on the other side of the bay, they are basically frost-free areas, but other parameters are different, annual average temperature and stuff. However, this would be an extremely mild place, which would theoretically be suitable as a relic habitat. However, not for low-growing flowering plants, more for insects or fungi. So probably frost-free enough, even for a palm, which can stand some frost up to minus 15, minus 17 degrees, according to some literature, even colder. But too shady and too much competition. Yeah, when you go foraging, climate and weather and geology and topology and podology and all this are very important. Just some example with palms. You want to forage for ripe dates 1 week after a rain. Forget it, they're gonna be rotten. You forage big amounts before the rain, and after the rain, immediately after the rain, you salvage what you can. A week after the rain, you'll get only mold. Or you want to forage some palm or other fruit tree or other plant which requires lush rain. Well, you have to know if you want to forage the young greens, or you want to forage the flowers, or the unripe fruit, or the ripe fruit, or the desiccated fruit for the seed. You always have to know how strong of a rain season you had, like 2 weeks before that, 2 months before that, 3, 4, 5, 6 months before that. Otherwise, you might go on a arduous and extended hike and find nothing. Like, for example, now would be a bad time to go on an extended foraging trip, or a long travel in a pre-industrial society, or even going to war in your neighbor's country. We had a very cold winter, and we had a very dry winter and a very cold spring. So not many, there are no fruits, there are basically no spring greens. Yeah, okay, the goats and the pigs here are friendly enough, but that's not the normal situation. So basically, you send an army through this area at this time of the year. If you cannot catch a couple goats or pigs or fish, you are screwed. There is almost nothing you can forage here in the wild areas. In the agricultural areas, yes, there are some citruses and loquats, and also lots of winter and spring vegetables. But in the wild, it's a very lean season. People in previous centuries, millennia, and even hundreds of years ago, they would avoid to go traveling in such a time if they could, because they know that foraging and also hunting would be really bad. If they still have enough food in the area they are staying, they would totally avoid going on a long journey in those weather conditions of the last couple months. A lot of grapevines growing on those wild pistachios. And down there, more domestic pines. Possible signs of cultivation. We are approaching settled or formerly settled areas, it seems. Juniper. Most probably a red juniper. The fruits are very rich in sugar, but also rich in bitter and toxic substances. Well, dry winter, not a single fruit. And so they are either being used as a spice in small amounts or in big amounts to produce gin. because you can make a lot of alcohol from the sugar in those berries. And in the distillate there is not enough of the toxic and horribly tasting substances to greatly harm you, well, apart from the alcohol, but enough to just give the gin a specific flavor. Gin used to be a drink of the poor, made from the berries you cannot eat. Nowadays it's become a bit more fancy. And here ruta, probably ruta graveolens, a couple of caterpillars on it. This is a citrus relative which is native to the Mediterranean. Greeks and a couple other nations used it and still use it to some extent to flavor their wine. Most people don't like the smell of this thing. A few people do. However, better don't touch it, especially don't touch it with your nose, because this thing is phototoxic. You touch it with your bare skin, a couple hours later you get a sunburn. Look at this. Goats, pigs and tourists have removed all the soil around this little cluster of wild or feral olive, Olea europea varroleaster, and left a beautiful clump of tiny little bonsais. Now you could just take this off the rock. Well, probably there will be a hole or crack where a deep root is going down. Now, basically you could take this off the rock, prune it a little bit and make a beautiful bonsai group out of it. The Mediterranean, not so much in the Macchia, but in the Garrigue, you will find millions of beautiful bonsais. I wonder why the Mediterranean isn't really dominating the bonsai market. Macchia and Garrigue are very important words in Mediterranean, well, nature. They're basically what happens, well, Macchia, Garrigue and steppe. Basically they are what happens when you cut down the original forests. You cut them once, you get the Macchia. An area of 2 to 4 meter tall shrubs where most of the forest species are still present. You cut this down again, you get the Garrigue, which is like a half a meter to a meter tall. And often the forest species are missing. You cut it down again, you get a steppe. Basically this year, this small patch would be something Garrigue to rather steppe-like. But the area around us, look at it. The shrubs are taller than me. We have heather, myrtle, evergreen holm oak, phyllurea. Over there, strawberry tree, juniper, mastix pistachio, terebinth pistachio. So we have all the trees to form a new forest here over time. And the heather here, if you wonder why it's so tall, in the Mediterranean and in the Canary Islands it can get up to 20 meters tall and 1 meter thick. So heather can form full-size trees under those climatic conditions. And there we even have the deciduous flowering ash. So still a Macchia, which is to be expected here in those comparatively moist conditions, despite the fact that there is almost no soil. Why am I telling you this? Well, because as a forager you should always know in what type of vegetation you are foraging, because you're gonna get different things. You want to forage a lot of tasty spring greens or flowers, you cannot do this in a really dense Macchia. This would rather be a place to forage for mushrooms under those shrubs. A tiny asparagus down here, almost indistinguishable from the heather. Both have needle-like leaves. That's the asparagus, and it's like 5% of the size of the plants on the western slope, where they were heavily foraged by Italians. Here, very interesting that I haven't seen an asparagus for miles. Very, very interesting. Usually it should grow on such south-facing slopes, but there is some reason that prevents it from it. And if you know this reason, you know where not to go in order to forage asparagus. Ain't it beautiful here? pipe running through the macchia. Somebody has been tapping springs here. However, this pipe is ending over there, so yeah, this spring is not being tapped anymore. Why am I showing you this pipe on a foraging video? Well, if somebody has been tapping water here, then maybe there is still drinking water available around here. And on a 2-day hike through such dry areas, such signs can be quite significant.